I never imagined I'd find myself here, sitting alone on the edge of our bed, staring at the blinking cursor of my phone, trying to figure out how my marriage got to this point. My name is Ethan, and for the past 6 years, I thought I was happily married to Sophia. We'd met in college, both of us ambitious and idealistic, falling hard and fast in that way you think only happens in movies. Our relationship was built on laughter, shared dreams, and a quiet understanding of each other's quirks. But if I'm honest, cracks had started to show about a year ago. Sophia signed up for this weekend-long women's empowerment training course, a program that promised to help women unlock their potential with the guidance of an experienced life coach. I supported it wholeheartedly at first. She'd always been passionate about personal growth, and I was proud of her commitment. Little did I know, the organizer of that course, a man named Eric, would become the catalyst for the greatest betrayal of my life. At first, she'd come home from those sessions glowing. She'd share stories about the exercises they'd done, writing letters to their younger selves, practicing powerful affirmations, embracing their strength as women. I loved seeing her so alive. But then, she started mentioning Eric more often. His name slipped into conversation like a shadow, and I noticed the sparkle in her eyes when she talked about him. He just understands me, she'd say, almost wistfully. He pushes me to think deeper. I remember feeling a faint twinge of unease, but I brushed it aside. I trusted her. Why wouldn't I? I should have seen it coming when she began working late more often, even though her job hadn't suddenly become more demanding. Or when she'd leave the house early on Saturdays, saying she was meeting her training group for follow-up coaching sessions. Those weekends used to be our time, coffee in bed, lazy breakfasts, spontaneous road trips, but they became days when I was alone, watching the clock, waiting for her to come home. One Sunday evening, she returned later than usual. I was on the couch, half watching some show, when she slipped in quietly, avoiding eye contact. She smelled faintly of cologne, one I didn't recognize, something woody and musky, definitely not mine. When I hugged her, she stiffened before quickly pulling away. Long day? I asked, trying to keep my voice light. Yeah, she said, not meeting my gaze. Eric wanted to do a one-on-one debrief. It ran late. That night, I lay awake, the words one-on-one echoing in my mind like a taunt. I wanted to believe it was innocent, but my instincts told me otherwise. Still, I said nothing. I was afraid of what I'd find if I pushed too hard. Then came the night that changed everything. It was our anniversary, and I'd planned a surprise dinner at the restaurant where we had our first date. I even booked the table with her favorite view of the city skyline. I set everything up perfectly, the flowers, the champagne, even a playlist of songs we used to dance to in our living room. But she never showed. I called. No answer. I texted. Nothing. Hours passed, and finally, I drove home, hoping something had come up at work. When I got there, the lights were on, and I could hear music drifting from the bedroom. My heart lifted for a moment, maybe she'd planned a surprise of her own. But when I opened the door, what I saw shattered me. She was there, sitting cross-legged on our bed, laughing softly with Eric. He was sprawled beside her, one hand resting possessively on her knee. They were so engrossed in each other that they didn't notice me at first. It felt like time stopped, the world going silent except for the roar of my own heartbeat in my ears. When they finally looked up, Sophia's face went pale. Eric, on the other hand, just gave me a smug, pitying smile, the kind that said he'd already won. Ethan, Sophia said, her voice trembling. I can explain. But I couldn't hear her. My mind was spinning, every memory of us flashing before my eyes, the way she looked at me on our wedding day, the nights we spent planning our future, the promises we made. I felt like I was drowning in betrayal. Eric stood, towering over me. You weren't giving her what she needed, he said calmly, as if he was offering some kind of benevolent truth. She deserves more. I almost lunged at him, but something inside me held back. Maybe it was shock. Maybe it was the realization that the woman I loved had already chosen someone else. I stepped back, numbness spreading through my chest. I think you should leave, I managed, my voice low and shaking. Sophia hesitated, tears pooling in her eyes, but Eric placed a firm hand on her shoulder. She looked at him, and in that moment, I knew. I saw it in her eyes, the connection they shared, the intimacy I thought was ours alone. Without another word, I turned and walked out, the walls of our home feeling suddenly unfamiliar, suffocating. My mind was blank as I drove aimlessly through the night, the city lights blurring through my tears. I kept asking myself, how did we get here? How did a weekend training course turn into the end of everything we built? And most of all, what was I supposed to do now? I drove until dawn, the sunrise painting the sky a pale orange that felt more like mockery than hope. My car ended up parked along a cliffside road, overlooking the ocean where the waves crashed relentlessly against the rocks. It was the only place I could breathe. I sat there for hours, the sea breeze stinging my face as I tried to process what had happened. In the silence of the early morning, I replayed every moment of our relationship. The way she used to light up when I came home from work. How she'd fall asleep on my chest, our hands entwined like we couldn't bear to let go. I thought about the little post-it notes we used to leave each other, love notes that had gradually been replaced by quick reminders about groceries or appointments. How had I missed the signs? Or did I simply refuse to see them? By noon, I finally gathered the strength to go back. I found Sophia alone in the kitchen, sitting at the table with a cold cup of coffee in her hands. Her eyes were red, and she looked like she hadn't slept at all. For a brief moment, I almost felt sorry for her, almost. "Where's Eric?" I asked, my voice so hoarse it startled even me. "He left," she whispered. "He said I needed to talk to you." I pulled out the chair across from her and sat down, trying to steady my shaking hands. There was so much I wanted to say, anger, heartbreak, confusion, but all that came out was, "Why?" She closed her eyes and let out a shuddering breath. "It started out innocent, Ethan. I swear it did. The training sessions made me feel seen, appreciated. Eric kept telling me things I didn't even know I needed to hear. He made me feel alive. And I didn't?" I asked, the question breaking something deep inside me. "It wasn't that you weren't enough," she said quickly, reaching for my hand. I pulled it away. "It was different. He made me feel like I was special, like I mattered beyond being a wife. I didn't realize how much I missed feeling that way. I felt like I was going to be sick." "So, you let him into our home? Into our bed?" Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I never meant for it to go that far. But once it started, I couldn't stop." Her words felt like knives. I looked at her and saw a stranger, someone I didn't know, someone I wasn't sure I wanted to know anymore. "I loved you, Sophia," I said, my voice breaking. "I gave you everything I had." "I know," she sobbed, burying her face in her hands. "And I ruined it. I ruined us." For a long time, we sat there in silence, the only sound the ticking of the kitchen clock. I kept thinking back to our vows, for better or worse. But this wasn't just worse, this was betrayal on a level I couldn't comprehend. When she finally looked up, her eyes were hollow. "What happens now?" I took a deep breath. "I don't know," I admitted honestly. "I can't just pretend this didn't happen. I need time." "I'll do anything, Ethan," she said desperately. "Counseling, therapy. I just don't want to lose you." I wanted to believe her. Part of me still loved her so fiercely it hurt. But another part of me, a bigger part, knew that trust once shattered like this could never truly be whole again. I packed a bag that afternoon, throwing clothes into a duffel as Sophia watched from the doorway, arms wrapped tightly around herself. I felt her eyes on me with every step, a quiet pleading I couldn't face. Before I left, she reached out, touching my shoulder. "Please don't give up on us," she whispered. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I stepped out into the cool evening air, the sun dipping low on the horizon, and closed the door behind me. It felt like the end of something I thought was forever. I checked into a small motel by the beach, the kind of place we used to stay at during spontaneous weekend getaways. Every corner of the room reminded me of her, of us. I lay awake for hours, the sound of waves outside both comforting and mocking. How could something so constant, like the ocean, exist in a world where love could unravel overnight? Days turned into weeks. I started seeing a therapist, someone who helped me process the storm of emotions I couldn't untangle on my own. I threw myself into work and reconnected with friends I had drifted from over the years. I realized how isolated I had become in my marriage, how much of myself I had poured into Sophia without ever noticing I had nothing left to give. One evening, I took a walk along the shoreline, watching families and couples laughing, holding hands, living lives that looked so blissfully simple. For the first time in a long time, I felt something like peace. I wasn't healed, far from it, but I could breathe again. Sophia reached out several times. Long texts full of apologies, voice messages with her crying, saying she missed me, that she still loved me. I listened, but I didn't respond. I wasn't ready. Maybe I never would be. Eventually, I met with a lawyer to discuss our options. The conversation was surreal, but necessary. We agreed on a separation, giving us space to decide if there was anything worth salvaging. I didn't know what the future held, but I knew I couldn't rush forgiveness. Healing wasn't a race. As I write this now, months later, I still have days where the memories cut deep. But I'm learning to live again, to find myself outside the shadow of the person I used to be with her. There's a long road ahead, but I'm walking it. Step by step. And if there's one thing I've learned through all this, it's that sometimes, the hardest truths are what finally set us free.